If you are over 60 and your morning starts the same way it has started for years now, with that thick film of mucus at the back of your throat, the swallowing, the clearing, the feeling that something is sitting right at your voice box and will not move, then what I am about to tell you may explain a symptom you have probably blamed on the wrong thing for a decade. Because for millions of adults over 60, that constant throat mucus has nothing to do with pollen, nothing to do with dust, nothing to do with your sinuses at all. It is coming from your stomach. Dr. Jamie Koufman, the New York laryngologist who spent more than 30 years studying this exact condition, has estimated that as many as 50 million Americans may be living with it, and that the overwhelming majority have never once been told the real cause. The condition is called laryngopharyngeal reflux, or LPR, and here is the detail that fools everyone, including a surprising number of physicians. Most people who have it never feel heartburn. Not once. No burning in the chest, no sour taste, none of the classic reflux signals. That is why it is often called silent reflux, and it is why so many adults over 60 spend years, and often more than $1,000 a year, on antihistamines, nasal sprays, allergy panels, and antibiotics that were never going to work, because the problem was never in the nose. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly how a digestive enzyme called pepsin ends up sitting in the tissue of your throat, why your body responds by coating it in mucus day after day, and the 5 specific changes, most of them free, that published research suggests can calm this down within 2 to 6 weeks. And there is one part of this story that even some ear, nose, and throat specialists get wrong, and it explains precisely why your allergy pills not only failed to help, but may have made the mucus feel worse. I will get to that, because the way they get it wrong is the same way you will get it wrong if nobody explains it. Here is exactly what I am going to walk you through today. Number 1. The 3-hour rule. The single most powerful timing change you can make, and the specific reason it matters more after 60 than it did at 40. Number 2. The 6-inch bed adjustment that a review in the American Journal of Gastroenterology associates with meaningfully fewer nighttime reflux events, and why stacking pillows is the wrong way to do it. Number 3. The 5 everyday foods and drinks that can reactivate pepsin in your throat even on a day when you have no reflux at all, including one that many people over 60 drink every single morning. Believing it is healthy. Number 4. The 60-second habit swap for throat clearing itself, because the clearing is not just a symptom, it is part of what keeps the cycle going. And number 5. A laboratory finding published in the Annals of Otology, Rhinology, and Laryngology about a specific type of water that was shown in the lab to permanently deactivate pepsin on contact. Every one of these 5 is coming in order later in this video. Before we go further, one quick ask. If this channel helps you take charge of your health in your prime years, take 1 second to hit subscribe and the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this information reach the people who need it most. I am Dr. Vitalis. On this channel, I take the health problems that show up after 50 and break them down using published research and plain language, naming the studies as we go. I am not your treating physician, and nothing in this video replaces a conversation with your own doctor. What I can do is make sure that when you have that conversation, you walk in knowing exactly what to ask about. Let me tell you about Eleanor. Eleanor is 67 years old. She lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the same house she has lived in for 22 years. And for roughly 6 of those years, Eleanor has been clearing her throat. Not occasionally, constantly. Her husband counted once during a single episode of a television drama and stopped counting at 40. Every morning, Eleanor woke up with what she described as a coating of glue at the back of her throat. She would spend the first 20 minutes of her day coughing, swallowing, and clearing. And then the sensation would settle into a low hum that never fully left until she went to bed. Eleanor did what almost everyone does. She assumed it was allergies. She started with an over-the-counter antihistamine, 1 tablet every morning. When that did nothing after 3 months, she added a steroid nasal spray. When that did nothing, she saw her primary care doctor, who agreed it was probably postnasal drip and prescribed a stronger antihistamine. Over the next 4 years, Eleanor went through 2 full allergy panels, both of which came back essentially negative. 1 CT scan of her sinuses, which was clean, and 2 courses of antibiotics for suspected sinus infections that, in hindsight, she almost certainly never had. By her own accounting, she spent over $1,100 in a single year between medications, copays, and imaging. The mucus did not improve. If anything, her throat felt drier and more irritated, and the clearing got worse. What finally changed the picture was a hoarse voice. In her 6th year of symptoms, Eleanor noticed her voice cracking by late afternoon, and her primary care doctor referred her to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. The ENT passed a small camera through her nose and looked down at her voice box, a 5-minute procedure done right in the office. And what he saw was not allergy. The tissue around her larynx was red and swollen. The area behind her vocal cords was thickened. These are textbook findings of laryngopharyngeal reflux. The specialist asked Eleanor one question: "Do you ever get heartburn?" Eleanor said no, never, not once in her life. And he said, "That is exactly what I expected you to say." Eleanor had spent 6 years and well over $3,000 treating her nose when the problem the entire time was coming up from her stomach while she slept, without a single one of the warning signals most of us are taught to look for. And the reason I am opening with Eleanor is not because her case is unusual. It is because her case is almost perfectly typical. Studies of ENT clinic populations suggest that somewhere between 10 and 30% of patients walking through the door have reflux involvement in their symptoms. And Eleanor's path, the years of allergy treatment, the negative panels, the clean scans, is the standard path for adults over 60 with this condition. If you have been on that path, what happened to Eleanor is very likely what is happening to you. So let me explain the mechanism, because once you understand it, everything about this condition, including why the allergy pills failed, suddenly makes sense. In plain English, here is what is happening. Tiny amounts of stomach contents, often as a fine mist or a brief splash, travel up your esophagus, past a second valve at the top of it, and reach your throat and voice box. Those stomach contents carry a digestive enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin's entire job in life is to break down protein. That is what it does to your dinner. And your throat, your larynx, your vocal cords are made of protein. Now, your esophagus, the tube between your mouth and stomach, has some built-in defenses against stomach contents. It can tolerate a certain amount of exposure. That is why classic heartburn takes a fair amount of acid to produce. But your throat has almost no defense at all. Researchers who study this, including Dr. Koufman's group, have pointed out that the throat may be dramatically more sensitive to reflux injury than the esophagus, which means exposures far too small to cause heartburn can still be enough to irritate the larynx. That is the entire explanation for the word silent. The reflux events are real, but they are too small and too brief to trigger the chest symptoms you were taught to expect. They only announce themselves through the throat. And here is where the mucus comes in. When pepsin lands on the delicate tissue of your throat, your body does the only thing it can do to protect protein-based tissue from a protein-digesting enzyme. It covers it. Your throat lining ramps up mucus production as a physical shield. That film of mucus you feel every morning, the one that feels like post-nasal drip, is very often not dripping down from your nose at all. It is being manufactured right there in your throat on purpose as a defense. Your body is not malfunctioning. It is guarding the wound. Why does this show up after 60 in particular? 3 reasons. First, the valve at the bottom of your esophagus, the lower esophageal sphincter, tends to weaken with age, and the likelihood of a hiatal hernia, where part of the stomach slides up through the diaphragm and undermines that valve, rises steadily through our 60s and 70s. Second, the wave of muscle contractions that sweeps refluxed material back down, called esophageal motility, slows with age, so what comes up stays up longer. Third, saliva production declines with age, and dozens of common medications, blood pressure medications, antidepressants, and yes, antihistamines, dry the mouth further. Saliva is one of your natural rinsing and buffering systems. Less saliva means less cleanup. Which brings me to the open loop from the beginning of this video, the part even some specialists get wrong. Research published by Dr. Nikki Johnston and colleagues has shown that pepsin does not simply wash away after a reflux event. It can remain in the tissue of the throat, stable but inactive, for an extended period. It sits there like a dry sponge, and it reactivates whenever the environment around it becomes acidic again. Here is the part that should stop you cold. That acid does not have to come from your stomach. It can come from the top, from a glass of orange juice, from a diet soda, from coffee. Anything acidic you swallow can wash over pepsin already embedded in your throat and switch it back on. This is why someone can have one small reflux event overnight and then spend 3 days with a raw, mucus-coated throat, refreshed and reactivated by what they eat and drink. And it is why antihistamines were doomed from the start. They do nothing about pepsin. What they do is dry out your secretions, so the protective mucus your throat is producing gets thicker and stickier and harder to clear, which is exactly what Eleanor experienced. The pills did not just fail. For many people, they make the sensation worse. Eleanor's 6 years of symptoms were not 6 years of allergies resisting treatment. They were 6 years of a mechanism nobody had named. Now, Eleanor is one pattern of this condition, but she is not the only one, and I want to show you 3 more, because this condition wears different disguises on different people. Frank is 71, retired, living outside Tucson, Arizona. Frank does not complain about mucus during the day. Frank's problem is the night. 2 or 3 times a week, Frank wakes up at around 2 in the morning, coughing so hard he has to sit up on the edge of the bed, sometimes with a choking sensation, like something went down the wrong pipe while he was asleep. His wife started sleeping in the guest room. Frank's doctor tried an inhaler, suspecting adult-onset asthma, with minimal effect. Here is the detail that mattered. Since retiring, Frank and his wife had drifted into eating dinner at 8:30 or 9 at night, and Frank was usually in bed by 10. He was lying down flat within 60 to 90 minutes of his largest meal of the day, at an age when his stomach empties more slowly than it did at 40. Every night, gravity, which is the single best anti-reflux device you own, was being taken out of the game while his stomach was still full. Frank's nighttime choking episodes were reflux reaching his airway while he slept. When he moved dinner to 6 o'clock and raised the head of his bed, the 2 a.m. episodes dropped, by his count, from roughly 10 a month to 1 or 2. Diane is 58, from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Diane sings in her church choir. Her version of this condition attacked the thing she cared about most, her voice. Hoarseness by evening, a longer warm-up every week, and eventually notes at the top of her range that simply stopped coming. She was going through a bag of throat lozenges every few days, and Diane had a habit she believed was healthy. Every morning, on an empty stomach, she drank a large glass of warm water with fresh lemon juice because she had read it was good for digestion. Remember the mechanism. Pepsin sitting dormant in throat tissue, waiting for acid. Lemon juice is one of the most acidic things in any kitchen, with a pH around 2. Every single morning, Diane was rinsing her vocal cords with exactly the reactivation signal that embedded pepsin waits for. Her ENT found swelling on the vocal cords consistent with reflux irritation. The lemon water was not the root cause, but it was pouring fuel on it 7 days a week. She stopped it, made the other changes I will cover in a moment, and by her account, her voice recovered most of its range over about 3 months. And then there is Walter, 74, in Pittsburgh. And Walter is the case that surprises people. Walter has been taking a PPI, a proton pump inhibitor, a daily acid-blocking pill for 6 years, prescribed after 1 episode of genuine heartburn. So Walter assumed reflux was impossible for him. The stomach acid is blocked, he said, so how can I have a reflux problem? And yet Walter had the throat mucus, the clearing, the lump in the throat sensation, all of it. Here is what Walter's case teaches. Acid-blocking medication reduces acid. It does not stop reflux itself. The valve is still weak, material still comes up, and that material still carries pepsin. Research on this condition suggests this is a major reason why PPI therapy alone has a disappointing track record for throat symptoms specifically. Several controlled trials have found PPIs performing little better than placebo for LPR throat complaints. Walter's pill was protecting his esophagus from acid burn, but it was never addressing the enzyme reaching his throat. Walter needed the mechanical and dietary changes, not a stronger pill. And to be clear, Walter should not and did not stop his medication on his own. That is a decision made with your doctor. But his story explains why the pill alone was never going to clear his throat. 3 people: a nighttime choker, a singer with a healthy habit that was not healthy for her, and a man already on reflux medication. All 3, the same mechanism. Now let me give you the 5 changes in order of impact, and every one of them pays off a promise from the start of this video. Number 1. The 3-hour rule. Do not eat within 3 hours of lying down. Not 2, not 90 minutes, 3. This is the single highest leverage change for most people with this condition, and it costs nothing. When you are upright, gravity holds stomach contents down even when the valve is weak. When you lie down with food and gastric juice still in the stomach, you remove that protection at the exact moment your slower, over 60 stomach emptying needs it most. In practical terms, if you go to bed at 10, your last bite of food is at 7. That includes the evening snack. And I will say that directly, because for most people, the evening snack, the ice cream, the crackers, the fruit at 9 p.m. is where this rule dies. Liquids are gentler, but in the final hour before bed, keep even those small. Give this rule 2 weeks of honest compliance before you judge it. For many people, it is the difference maker all by itself. Number 2. Raise the head of your bed by 6 inches, not with pillows. This is the mistake almost everyone makes. Stacking pillows folds you at the waist, which can actually increase pressure on your stomach and make reflux more likely. What the research supports is raising the entire head of the bed frame, so your whole torso lies on a gentle slope. You can do this with 6-inch bed risers under the 2 legs at the head of the bed, usually under $25 at any home goods store, or with a full-length wedge pillow that elevates you from the hips up. Reviews of the evidence, including work discussed in the American Journal of Gastroenterology, associate head-of-bed elevation with fewer nighttime reflux episodes and faster clearance of what does come up. You sleep on a slope so gentle you will stop noticing it within a week, and gravity works for you all night. This is the change that transformed Frank's 2 a.m. episodes. Number 3. The 5 reactivators. For 2 weeks, remove the 5 most acidic offenders from your routine. Because remember, anything acidic you swallow can reactivate pepsin already sitting in your throat, even on a day with 0 reflux. The 5. First, citrus, including Diane's lemon water, orange juice, and grapefruit. Second, carbonated drinks, and yes, that includes sparkling water, because carbonation itself is mildly acidic, and the bubbles stretch the stomach and pressure the valve. Third, tomato in concentrated forms, sauces, juices, soups. Fourth, vinegar-heavy items, and I want to name one specifically, apple cider vinegar shots, which some corners of the internet promote as a reflux remedy. For a throat with embedded pepsin, swallowing straight vinegar may be one of the worst things you can do to it. And fifth, coffee, which is the one I mentioned at the start that millions drink every morning believing it is harmless. I am not asking you to quit coffee forever. For the 2-week reset, cut to 1 cup, taken with or after food, never on an empty stomach, and see what your throat tells you. Alcohol and chocolate deserve honorable mentions. Both relax the valve at the bottom of the esophagus, so keep them modest during the reset as well. Number 4. Replace the throat clearing itself. This is the promise about the 60-second habit swap, and here is the open loop I planted earlier, resolved. Throat clearing is not a neutral symptom. Mechanically, clearing your throat slams your vocal cords together and scrapes the very tissue that is already irritated. The tissue responds to that trauma the same way it responds to pepsin, with more protective mucus, which creates more sensation, which triggers more clearing. Speech pathologists who treat this condition teach a specific replacement, and it works like this. The moment you feel the urge to clear, do not clear. Instead, take a small sip of water, then do 1 hard, deliberate swallow, chin slightly tucked. The swallow sweeps the larynx and moves the mucus without the collision. If no water is nearby, a dry, hard swallow or a gentle, silent huff of air like fogging a mirror does the same job. The urge will return at first, every few minutes. Sip, swallow, move on. People who commit to this consistently often notice the urge itself fading within 2 to 3 weeks because you have stepped out of the injury loop. 60 seconds to learn, and it breaks the cycle that keeps this condition alive. Number 5. Alkaline water and the laboratory finding I promised. In 2012, Dr. Koufman and Dr. Johnston published a study in the Annals of Otology, Rhinology, and Laryngology testing what happens to pepsin at different pH levels. What they found in the laboratory is that water with a pH of 8.8 permanently deactivated pepsin on contact. Not suppressed, deactivated in the lab setting. Now, I want to be careful and honest here, the way the researchers themselves were. This was a laboratory finding, not a large clinical trial, so treat it as a promising, low-risk tool rather than a proven cure. But the logic is straightforward. If pepsin embedded in your throat reactivates with acid, then rinsing your throat with alkaline water may help shift the local environment the other way. Practically, look for bottled alkaline water labeled pH
8.8 or higher. Several national brands print the pH right on the label and use it as your sipping water through the day, and especially after meals and before bed. Combined with a lower acid diet, some small follow-up studies have reported meaningful symptom improvement on this kind of protocol. It is the cheapest experiment in this entire video, with the most interesting laboratory science behind it. Those are the 5: timing, elevation, reactivators, the swallow swap, and the water. Do them together for 2 weeks before you judge any of them, because they work as a system. Now, one more tool, and this is the advanced move that almost nobody outside ENT clinics knows exists. It is called the Reflux Symptom Index, and it was published by Dr. Peter Belafsky and colleagues in 2002 as a validated screening questionnaire for exactly this condition. It is 9 questions. You rate each from 0 to 5 based on how much it bothered you over the past month. The 9 areas are hoarseness, throat clearing, excess mucus or post-nasal drip sensation, difficulty swallowing, coughing after eating or lying down, breathing difficulty or choking episodes, a troublesome cough in general, the sensation of a lump in the throat, and heartburn or indigestion. Notice that heartburn is only one of the 9. That is the whole point of the tool. Add up your score. In the published research, a total above 13 suggests a meaningful likelihood of laryngopharyngeal reflux and is generally considered worth a professional evaluation. You can find the Reflux Symptom Index by name with a simple search. Score yourself tonight in 5 minutes and bring the number to your doctor. Saying my reflux symptom index is 19 starts a completely different conversation than saying I have a lot of mucus. One caveat, and it matters. This questionnaire screens. It does not diagnose, and it is not a substitute for having a doctor actually look. If you have trouble swallowing solid food sticking on the way down, unintended weight loss, pain in one ear that does not resolve, a voice change lasting more than 3 weeks, or any blood in what you cough up, those are red flags that need a direct medical evaluation promptly, not a 2-week home protocol. For everything in this video, the home changes and the doctor are partners, not alternatives. So let me bring this home. If you take nothing else from the last 25 minutes, take this. That constant mucus in your throat is not a nuisance to be endlessly medicated with allergy pills. For a very large share of people over 60, it is a protective response to a digestive enzyme, pepsin, sitting where it does not belong. And it has a mechanism, a name, and a set of specific, mostly free countermeasures. Eleanor spent 6 years and more than $3,000 treating the wrong organ. The 3-hour rule costs nothing. Raising your bed costs about $25 once. The 2-week low-acid reset costs nothing. The swallow swap costs nothing. You could have every one of these running by this weekend, and within 2 to 6 weeks you may know more about your own throat than 6 years of allergy treatment ever taught Eleanor. And to say it plainly one more time, this video is educational. It is not medical advice, and it is not a diagnosis. Bodies differ, medications interact, and other conditions can produce similar symptoms. So take what you learned here, take your Reflux Symptom Index score, and have a real conversation with your physician before making changes, especially to any medication you already take. If you know someone over 60 who is always clearing their throat, a spouse, a parent, a friend from church who keeps lozenges in every pocket, send them this video, because there is a very good chance nobody has ever told them what you now know. And if this helped you today, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so the next one reaches you the moment it is ready. I am Dr. Vitalis, and I will see you in the next one.